Welcome to Captify Voices, the podcast series diving deep into diversity, equity, and inclusion in today's workplace. Hear firsthand from our Captifiers who live and breathe these values every day as we uncover their experiences, challenges, and insights. Let's drive the change, one conversation at a time.
Welcome to Captify Voices. I am Sabrina Giganti, Head of Talent and Employee Experience at Captify. And today I have Bolaji Farinto sharing his experiences on living with sickle cell disease and how we can best support colleagues, friends, family and yourself who may be living with the disease. I'll let him take it away.
Hi, yes, I'm Bolaji Farinto. I work at Captify as the creative design manager. It's been, I think, almost like a year and a bit now since I've started my role here, and I'd like to say that this has been the most supportive HR department that I've ever worked with and worked alongside. As Sabrina touched on, we will be discussing sickle cell disease and how it can affect your colleagues, friends and family, and just a little, I guess, snippet about what the disease is. It's a sickle cell disease, an inherent blood disorder that causes red blood cells to become rigid and sickle-shaped, which can block blood flow and lead to serious complications. And what they mean by complications are things like pain, organ failure. As you know, all our organs need oxygen to work. And obviously with sickle cell, you basically have less oxygen within your body than any normal person would.
How do you get diagnosed with sickle cell?
It's weird. So it either can happen at birth or it can happen later on. I mean, my personal story is I got diagnosed when I took my first flight. I went to Spain on a family holiday, and on the flight back is when my sickle cell was triggered. So I went 11 years without a crisis or being diagnosed with sickle cell, and then that flight actually triggered it, and we realised after multiple blood tests that I actually did have sickle cell. I still remember to this day, I was in primary school running around the playground. It was the day after I just came back from holiday, and I just all of a sudden couldn't breathe. I thought I had asthma. The school nurse gave me an asthma pump, weirdly enough, and obviously that wasn't resolving any of the issues that I was experiencing. So ambulance had to be called for me, and it was in that whole process that the doctor was like, "Yeah, you're suffering from a sickle cell crisis, and this is going to affect you for the rest of your life." And yeah, at 11, you're just like, oh, it's probably just like another cough or cold. But then you really do understand what the doctor meant by affecting you for the rest of your life.
I mean, Bolaji, I can't even imagine how overwhelming it must have been to receive that kind of news, especially at such a young age. When I look back at my childhood, or even my kids at that age, it's hard to grasp how someone processes something so serious. I know I wouldn't have been able to. Education and a strong support system are key, which is a great part of recording this podcast with you, actually. So, reflecting back on your diagnosis, do you know if both of your parents carried the sickle cell trait?
So what happens with sickle cell is either both parents carry the trait. So it works, the rule of thumb is if both parents have a trait of sickle cell, so your blood type or what they look for in your blood test would be CS. So let's say my mum has CS and my dad has CS. Out of 3 kids, I'm the third born. My sister and my brother have CS, but I have SS. So SS is the blood type that actually causes the sickle cell, and it's 1 in 4 kids that can get sickle cell if both parents have a trait. If obviously one parent has SS and the mum in this instance has CC, no children will have sickle cell, if that makes sense. So each child will just have a trait of sickle cell but won't actually suffer from it.
Okay.
But it can be passed down if they meet a further partner who has SS or CS in their blood.
And when you're dealing with a crisis, what kind of pain are you going through?
I always get asked this when I'm in A&E and the doctor's like, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain? And I'm always saying like 11. It's almost like my organs are failing. There is zero oxygen going into my main organ, so it feels like excruciating pain. It's hard to describe in a word or in a sentence, but the pain is unimaginable, and I obviously wish it upon no one. The hard part about the pain is describing it and getting the right medication for it. It's not always the case that doctors believe sickle cell patients, and sometimes obviously if you go to A&E they think you abuse drugs. I've had that before, where they feel like I'm only here to get a hit of morphine.
Wow.
And morphine is usually the resolver of the pain. It subsides it until you get an IV drip and oxygen. But in that time where you're tossing and turning, you can't sit still because you're in so much pain, it's unimaginable for me.
So not only are you dealing with a sickle cell crisis, which to a normal person who doesn't suffer from sickle cell is unimaginable, but you're also dealing with being accused of being a drug addict, which is unfathomable.
As the patient, to be arguing with the doctor saying this pain is unbearable, and they're treating me like a drug addict, should I say.
And is there not anything on your record that would immediately...
So we are getting smarter. I'm not sure if I mentioned that I'm working with the Sickle Cell Society charity, and what's been put forward is almost a sickle cell passport.
Okay.
So regardless of wherever you are in the country and whatever hospital you visit, like an NHS number, you would have a sickle cell passport, and you'd be able to be treated. It would be on the system, on the NHS system, and you'd be able to treat it according to your doctor's notes and how to stop the pain.
Okay. Do you take daily medication to control the pain or to kind of stop a
That's
crisis?
correct, yeah. So I always believe in prevention better than any form of cure. So in terms of prevention and your question to medication, I take medication daily. So it's weird because I have to take penicillin and folic acid daily. And penicillin is obviously a antibiotic, which you probably take if you've got the common cold or you're not feeling too well. But a common case with sickle cell is that your immune system is always fighting against colds, illnesses, but it's fighting almost twice as hard. So the penicillin helps and aids your immune system to be of normal standard. And there's another one called hydroxyurea. That drug actually enables my red blood cells to contain more oxygen, because my bone marrow hemoglobin obviously sickles the red blood cells, which is why it's called sickle cell.
What is the earliest you can get diagnosed with it?
You can get diagnosed. Some kids, so obviously come out the womb, you're screaming. Some kids are screaming because they've just come into the world. Some kids are screaming because they're probably going for a sickle cell crisis as they've come out the womb. So if I always encourage parents to do blood tests prior, obviously you don't normally do blood tests, but some kids come out of the womb suffering from sickle cell straight away, which is obviously tough for the parents because there's no form of communication in terms of what's actually going on with that child.
That must be so difficult. And can you do tests when you're pregnant
You can.
on the fetus?
What I'd always say, do tests with yourself and your partner. So there is a blood test that you can take to understand who's a carrier, who's not a carrier, or if there are no carriers of the inherent disease. It's obviously it's very hard to meet someone, fall in love, and then find out that you're both carriers and there's a possibility of your child having sickle cell. But it's always good to know, I'd say, for future, and to brace yourself for what living with a child with sickle cell is going to be like, and just have that in mind, I'd say.
And can you have sickle cell but without experiencing any symptoms, so then you pass it on?
No. So if you have sickle cell, you're going to suffer from the disease, regardless of what you do. And suffering comes in forms of a change of weather. If the weather changes, or you're too hot, you're too cold, if you have a common cold, it can lead to chest infections. I haven't seen any cases where someone's had sickle cell and has never suffered from its effects. It's one of those conditions you never really want to have, as sad as that sounds.
Yeah. And there's always been misconceptions about sickle cell and it being a black disease.
Yeah.
Is that true? Can other ethnicities have sickle cell?
100%. It is a common myth that it only affects the black community. It affects anyone who has the blood trait in their system, and I think we're trying to unlearn those previous learnings to help educate society now. It's not just an inherent black disease; it can affect anyone.
And what ways do you feel that the HR department of a company can help sufferers of sickle cell?
That's a great question. I think things like flexible learning, just understanding the trait a little bit more, offering assistance to someone who is suffering from sickle cell. So comfort is great. So if, I don't know, a request gets put in for someone who's working at home but they need a comfortable office chair, that could be quite good. Flexible working, so working from home, especially in the winter months where we're more vulnerable. Management, HR, allowing their workers with sickle cell to work from home and trust them to work from home is great. And initiatives like Black History Month and drawing awareness to the disease is great to educate the wider office, should I say, because it's not always understood. Obviously, if I'm off ill for 2 weeks due to sickle cell, sometimes colleagues may not understand why I'm off ill. They might think I'm skiving or just not pulling my weight, but shining a light on the disease and how it can affect someone is really good for less frustrations within the workplace.
That must be so frustrating for you because, you know, you look perfectly fit and healthy and you would never even think that you suffer from something so chronic.
Yeah.
So it is important that we build this awareness and that we can help support you and others who go through this. Can you offer any other advice of how we could best support as friends, as colleagues, anything that we can do to help support people?
Definitely, yeah, and 100%. I kind of agree with 100% of what you said. In terms of support, I'd say education is the best thing. Sickle cell patients also need blood, so there are ways of dealing with sickle cell, and some people get blood transfusions every 6 weeks. So donating blood, if you're fit and healthy, is very key and is so helpful to the society.
How can we donate blood?
So you can get in touch with your GP. Sometimes if you go to your local hospital, there are local blood donation vans that they have on site. You can sign up, and you can sign up online as well to Give Blood, Spread Love organisation. It's quite a well-known organisation. You can sign up and get your Give Blood, Spread Love card. So it's almost like you're a member of Giving Blood, if that makes sense.
Great.
It's really, really helpful.
I know that you mentor a few kids that have sickle cell.
Yeah.
How do you find that, and what would be your main points of advice for these kids that are looking to get into work or school?
That's a great question. My mentoring is solely halfly based on obviously my personal experience and what I've learned through the courses that you ultimately have to do for mentoring. The advice for kids I mentor is anything's achievable. When I was growing up, the science behind sickle cell wasn't as advanced as it is now. So it was always like I couldn't do anything. The doctors always advised me to almost be bedbound for the rest of my life. But with new things like new drugs and new ways of coping with the disease, I always tell the kids that I mentor to reach for the stars and never be bound by your illness. I also give them great coping mechanisms in terms of how to deal with the pain, how to prevent the pain, how to prevent a crisis, I'd say, in terms of staying warm in the winter months, trying not to drink a lot of alcohol. I know it's hard as like young kids trying to discover yourself in the world, and your mates are doing it as well. I always try to advise them to just be mindful of their condition, as hard as that is. But ultimately, it's to inspire them and make sure that they know that they are more than sickle cell. That's the main goal.
And what an inspiration they have as you as a mentor. We are actually having a fundraising event for one of the charities that you support.
Yeah.
What's the name of the charity?
So it's the Sickle Cell Society charity. They are great. I actually work with them on a personal basis, giving back, as I just mentioned, with the mentees. They have a website that I can obviously share with everyone for further information, and they know how to handle and talk about sickle cell in the best way.
Amazing. And is there constant research to try and find a cure for the disease?
There is. So there are a couple of cures. Obviously, with governments and how things play out, it's all dependent on budgets. There are a couple of cures in the US at the moment. So it's like if you have a sibling, and I believe it is in the UK now, come to think of it, if you have a sibling that doesn't suffer from sickle cell, you can get a bone marrow transplant from them. It's a long process. It's a yearly process, actually, to be concise. You get a bone marrow transplant from your sibling, and then hopefully that bone marrow then produces fresh red blood cells for you that aren't sickle, and that's how the process works. It's been tried and tested, and it's been approved, but it's just one of those things you have to be on the list for it. But there is a cure, but it's hard to come by that cure. At the moment, there's lots of discussions about age being a significant part of it. Whether if you're young enough, it could work. Obviously, as I said before, budgets, money, NHS, and other departments see it as an expensive treatment. So it's hard to get on a list and ensure that you qualify to get the treatment.
And has it been tried and tested?
Within the UK? Yeah. So some people in the UK have had their treatment. They have been cured from sickle cell. The only downside to that cure is that you're almost out for a year. And I think they are working upon making that a smoother process, because it's hard to take a year out of your life. Similar to, I guess, a cancer treatment, I believe you can lose all your hair from the treatment, because I think you need a form of radiation for your body to accept the bone marrow transplant.
So it's really complicated.
It's a complicated process, and it's not everyone that has a sibling as well. So it's very hard. There is growth, which is I guess, the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of finding a cure and a treatment for it.
So what are the key symptoms that are found in people with sickle cell?
Yeah, so I think the most obvious one is acute and chronic pain. I think anyone who's suffering from sickle cell will almost definitely tell you about the pain they're in. Before obviously it gets to that stage, you can notice signs like fatigue. If someone with sickle cell is really fatigued, it's important for them to seek rest and just recharge themselves before it gets to the chronic pain. And jaundice. So jaundice is in association with the eyes. So if the eyes are bloodshot and really yellow, that means they're suffering from an infection, which could then lead to chronic pain. So those are all like the signs you can look out for.
And how long will a crisis typically last?
A crisis can last up to 2 days. The recovery from a crisis can be up to 2 weeks. That's just, obviously, with most crises, you are hospital bound and you do get admitted to a ward.
And is there specialist sickle cell wards?
So yeah, not necessarily a specific sickle cell ward, but most hospitals should know how to deal with sickle cell within the London borough, and we're trying to expand that to the whole country.
And it's crazy to think that there's actually many cases worldwide that are underdiagnosed and underreported. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and building awareness around this.
Thank you for having me.
So, as part of UK Black History Month 2024, we are raising awareness about sickle cell disease and hosting a global fundraiser in support of the Sickle Cell Society charity, which Bolaji is involved with. Throughout October, we'll be organising various events and activities, so stay tuned and get involved.